Hey folks, let's discuss house systems in astrology, and I will share with you my own personal views on the matter. Let's begin by framing how I come to this issue from a personal perspective. For me, astrology has never been an intellectual or academic curiosity. Never ever. I have real clients with real lives and sincere desires for personal guidance. And for me, astrology has always been about understanding myself more and helping me to navigate through my life in a way that is more integrated, in a sense, helping me to understand myself more and to move through my life with more knowledge and more tools and more self-awareness. That's where I come to the study of astrology from. So nitpicking and obnoxious and self-righteous arguing between astrologers about systems for me is really irrelevant and sort of besides or extraneous to my goals as an astrologer. For me, it's much more about a therapeutic approach for myself and the clients that I work with. And I recognize that not every astrologer practices a therapeutic kind of astrology, and perhaps some of those people are more interested in the theoretical sort of aspects, with it having a more academic kind of focus. And I'm going to now argue with you about the best system in this very sort of removed academic theoretical kind of ivory tower way, without it sort of relating to people's lives. So I don't take part in any of that kind of thing, preferring to be very grounded with it, to actually use my own personal experience to back up my astrological assertions, and to be very grounded in terms of how I deal with clients, because my goal is to help them to just be better in their lives. It's quite simple. I understand that some people intuitively resonate with whole sign houses. Where I am on the house issue is that whatever is significant in a person's life, whatever the sort of fundamental broad themes, whatever those things are, they're going to show up whichever way you slice the chart up. That's what I have recognized. Now I have my chart here done up with whole sign houses, and I'm going to explain to you a few of the differences in comparison to when it is done up using a quadrant system such as Placidus or Koch. So, all right, when my chart is drawn up using Placidus or Koch, a quadrant system, I have 5 planets in my 11th house. So obviously the 11th house as a field of experience is going to be quite significant during the course of my life. All right. Now, using the whole sign house system, that stellium of planets, of 5 planets, has shifted into the 12th house. But the MC, the midheaven, being that very important point in the chart, is using whole sign houses, is in my 11th house. So therefore, we know that whether we're looking at my chart from a whole sign perspective or a quadrant perspective, the 11th house is absolutely significant and important. All right, let's look at something else here. My Sun, Pluto, Mercury conjunction has shifted from the 9th house using a quadrant system, using Placidus or Koch. It has shifted into the 10th house using the whole sign system. So Sun, Pluto, Mercury are all in my 10th house when I draw my chart up using the whole sign house system. I've resonated definitely with those planets being in my 9th house for various reasons, which I will not bore you with here. In the whole sign version of my chart, this is no longer the case, and they've all gone into the 10th house. However, What remains constant, obviously, is that my closest solar aspect is a trine to Jupiter. So the Jupiter Sag kind of signature is still very much important, and my MC is in Sagittarius. My midheaven is in Sagittarius by sign. So we know that some of these threads remain quite significant, and that I will have a Jupiterian tone regardless, because of just what happens by aspect. All right, so that is just a way of letting you know that despite the ways that I have sliced the thing up, I can recognize that, well, yeah, the same basic themes have come up and shown themselves to be very important. Now, I will say that my experience, and I only go by experience, my experience has made it so that I don't resonate with whole sign houses in terms of transits, though I'm very open to that changing. But it hasn't happened for me at all. I find that using a Coke or Placidus in terms of the house divisions, that transits through the houses are definitely highlighted in a much sharper manner when I'm using a quadrant system such as Placidus or Coke. So I find that the transits through the houses are much more pronounced, and this has happened for me in terms of loads of clients, and that being something that has resonated with me because I see the correlation by transit. I should not proceed without making something very clear and explicit. So I said before that the planet shifted from 9th house to 10th house. 10th house using whole sign houses. Now, of course, the 9th house is a part of the Sag-Jupiter matrix. So my sun being in the 9th house for me gives it that Sagittarian, Jupiterian subtone to it. But that being no longer the case in using a whole sign approach, the essential theme still continues because my sun makes a trine to Jupiter, and that is the closest solar aspect. So that was my point, that notwithstanding that there has been a shift in houses, the Sagittarian, Jupiterian matrix, that theme, that subtone still stands. There is this idea floating around that some house systems are more externally focused versus being psychologically or internally focused. And I'm wondering if astrologers are just repeating what they have heard from someone else, because I'm wondering if they have actually observed that for themselves. My feeling is that it's not the house system itself that is relatively more externally focused or internally focused, but it's about the astrology and the astrologer, I should say, and their disposition. If an astrologer is focused more on concrete, observable, external events, that will definitely come out in the kind of astrology that they practice. And if an astrologer is conversely much more in tune with inner psychological and spiritual processes, this will also come out. So it's not the house system that is more externally focused or internally focused. It's entirely the worldview of the astrologer. So I think the thinking is that, well, whole sign houses sort of give the more psychological inner template, and then let's say quadrant now systems sort of give more of a picture of what's happening on a kind of manifest external concrete level. And I don't know that quadrant house systems are any less psychological or inner focused. I think this boils down to the astrologer's worldview and how they approach their life, and consequently how they approach astrology. Historically speaking, there has been so much that has gone into people's choices of house systems. There have always been preferences, and I think that Charles Carter he actually made his own system up that seemed to really work for him, and he explained why. So I think it's a very limited mindset that says that one house system is better than the other. I mean, I think that's just so ridiculous. I think it is about what you feel drawn to and what has worked for you in your experience and what clicks with your personality disposition. So for me, perhaps it's a personality thing, but I don't mind that you can have interceptions. To me, that adds richness and a certain kind of complexity, which is so characteristic of the human person. So I have interceptions in my chart, and I just think it adds to the richness of the chart. People are so full of paradox. So I like that with quadrant systems, a house can have a bit of Aries and Pisces in it. It doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me in the least. It doesn't take away from the interpretations at all. So my approach is to surrender to the mystery, the absolute mystery, that people can use different house systems, different astrological systems, and still penetrate to the core of a person, their essential attunement and their experiences. Now, that to me, that's humbling, because it's saying that we are working with something that is so much more deeper and so much more vast than what we would think of on a conscious level, that astrology transcends our conscious systems and our application of compartments and categories that we would want to impose. And to me, there is a nice mystery about that that's very, very humbling. That's it from me for now on this topic. There's loads of other astro content on the channel, so go definitely have a look and subscribe for more discussions like this. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, talk soon. Bye.